Hi everyone, today we're going to make a wonderful Easter card, so stick with me to see how it's made. Okay, so how we start first with the Easter card, we're going to use a die. Now this die has got an outside edge cutting, and what you need to do, which is really important, particularly for this idea, is that you need to stick the two dies together because we're going to actually cut this multiple times and we want the die to be in exactly the same place. So what you're going to do is just lay the middle part and the outside edge of the die and then just put a little bit of tape on the back to keep it in place. So we've got some card here to start. And we're going to put it on our die cutting machine. Now you can use any die cutting machine you want. This is a manual one which I'm going to use, but the electrical ones will be as good as well. I've also got a little Easter sentiment here, and what I'm going to do to save myself some time, I'm actually just going to cut the two together, lay them one on next to the other, and then we're going to send this through the die cutting machine. Oh. What we're going to do is we're actually going to have the die fall off. That's fine, that happens. You could always tape it down if that happens to you. And we're just going to send it through the die cutting machine. If you have never used a die cutting machine before, you will get a little bit of a crack as that roller goes over the metal plate of the die. Now don't worry about that, that's a noise that you want to hear, it's fine. It's just because what happens with a die is the pressure is what actually cuts into the card. So you need that sound to get the pressure. And then we're just going to take this off, and you'll see here that we have, oh, this one didn't cut, oh no, it's stuck on, there we go, it's fine. Right, so what we're going to do, we're just going to take our pieces out, and as I said, I would cut this 3 times for this particular project. So you're just going to use a little pokey tool to help you get this out. So just push it in place. Now, I won't cut these again, but if you're going to do this, because obviously, as I said, you're going to need 3 layers of the same piece. What I would do is just get these pieces out. You don't want to send the die cut through again with the waste from the previous cut. And also, you need to cut the base as it is on its own without the center. So as I said, this just comes out very easily. It's very stuck down, but that's fine. It will just come off of that like that. And you'll get all the waste, but you just need to then cut the outside edge as well. And what you'll see then is you just get a square rather than the detail inside. And then we're going to get some wet glue, and we are going to put these on to start creating what is this stained glass window effect. Now, you can do stained glass window effect by doing paper piecing, but this way is just a much simpler and quicker way to get the same sort of effect. So first of all, we're just going to add our wet glue to the back of the die. Oh, she says, it's just get that off. This happens with wet glue, don't worry too much. You can just use a pokey tool to get that little excess of glue out. It won't be a problem. Now, a little tip for you, when I put wet glue on the back of a die like this, which is quite a detailed die, but obviously because we want it to stick down thoroughly, we're going to get every piece covered. Now, you have 2 ways that you can do this, but I find the way I do it much simpler. You can either add glue to something like a glass mat, and then you could just literally press the die cut over the top. But because I like to know that I've got all my little pieces covered, what I'm going to do is put the glue on, so it's completely covering the parts that I need, like so. There we go. It's pretty covered. And what I'm going to do then is I'm actually going to turn it over and just put the die cut onto my hand. Now you can rub that away, it's just glue. What it means is you know that all the pieces are covered, but any excess glue that's going to splodge out the sides is now on your hand. And particularly with this technique, you don't want any excess glue, because when you go to colour it in, which I'll show you in a moment, any excess glue is going to cause a bit of an issue with the pen. So we're just going to line that up. So it lines up perfectly, and I'm just, like I like to do, is turn it over and just press it down to get that die cut completely stuck down. I find if I do it this way, I end up maybe getting a bit dirty if I've got anything on my fingers, so this way I know that's going to be covered by the card base. So what we've got our outside edge, with the detail now stuck down, and what we're going to do is bring in some pens. This can be any brand of pen you like, it's completely up to you, and we're going to start colouring in. Now with this, you're going to see when I colour in, I might get over the lines, but that's the good thing about this particular technique. You don't have to worry if you get any on the lines, because as you'll see, because we've got several layers, we're going to cover up that mistake. So don't panic too much if, like me, you're not the greatest of colourists. It's okay. We all get there in the end, but you will definitely probably go over the detailed part. So you just want to go in with your pens, covering all of that. Don't worry about the squeak, that's just the pen going up against the paper. And we're just going to keep colouring in till we've covered all of those pieces. Now, what I would suggest is using alcohol markers or maybe several different colours so that you can get some detail in. Because, I mean, you don't have to. If you want to, you could just have one solid colour, but having a little bit of sort of shading here and there can help sort of give that more natural look. And we're just going to keep going in. You'll see in a moment what I mean. So we'll just colour part of this, like so. And as I say, you want to get all of that piece covered. And then we're going to go in with a slightly darker colour and we can just give a little bit of detail to our flower, like so. And we just keep adding that extra detail. Don't panic too much about making it too naturalistic. Just having a few colour blends is a nice idea to get that slightly defined look. We're just going to go around. Now, as you can see, it's quite a large die. So what I've done is I've just continued on and got some of the feathers done. And feathers, they're not feathers, they're leaves. And then I'm going to come in and just colour the outside edge for you to see. There we go. And then, as I said, you can see that I've gone over the edge a little bit, but you want to make sure that you get that pen right up to the point. So if you have to go over some of the detail, that is fine. Better to have it covered than once you've started to put the other layers on that you see slightly darker spots. So really get in there with that colour. There we go. Just get some of that blending in to give a bit of definition. There we go. Just a little bit over this side. And then what you'll see, as I said, usually when someone does a stained glass window effect, you're sitting there and you're going to put all the pieces in. But I think doing it this way, A, gives you a little bit more sort of control on what colours you want to have, but also it's much quicker than sitting in, adding all those pieces and having to cut them out of all different coloured pieces of card. Then what we're going to do, so like I said, I've clearly got it over the lines. So we're going to go in, again, we're going to do our technique of making sure that we cover the whole thing with our wet glue. And then we're going to pop it back on my hand just to get that excess off, which is a great way whenever you're using die cuts. I think what you find is sometimes we sort of over adhesive, we put too much on, and actually less adhesive is definitely more sometimes when you're card making. So think about this, even not for just these kinds of dies, but whenever you're doing anything, you know, think about whether you really need that much glue. So then I've covered it, so I'm just going to pop it off again so you can see all that excess that would have gone all over our card. And then what we've got to do, you've got to be quite careful with this one, because what you want to do is make sure that you line this up with the white lines on here. So I'm just going to gently lay that over, not push too hard, but that's the good thing about having wet glue, is you just have that little extra wiggle time. So if you can't quite get it in place, which I think I've done okay, but I just lift it up just to see if I can get it slightly more over the right parts, because I don't want to have any of the coloured scribbles showing. So now's the time to just check that you haven't got any pieces not sticking down. I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue under there just to get that stuck down as well. Not too much, as I say, but I just want those bits to stick down properly. So just pop a little bit in there. And then, what you're going to do is lay that on. And there we go. So again, as I said, this is the final time to see if you've missed any white parts, because we're going to put one more layer over the top. So just check there's no white parts left that you can see that you don't want. And then we're going to do it just one more time to get that depth, to really make it look sort of deep, like a stained glass window would be. And then we're just again going to get that down. And we're going to line it up, whoop, like so. And then you can really see that you're going to get that depth and dimension. Don't worry about the back as well. This is because it's alcohol ink and it's leaking through the paper. But again, we're going to put that down on the card blank so you won't be able to see that. And this one again doesn't want to stick down. So we're just going to add a little bit of glue on there, like that. And this one, just to make sure it's completely stuck down. And there we go, we have our stained glass window effect. Now to finish it off, what I've done is gone in again with the die, with the detail part in, again, which is really important why you want to keep that tape on, because you want to know that it's going to be the same size. And I've gone in with some silver just to really sort of finish it off as if you were looking at a stained glass. Or you could do maybe black card as well, that would give a stained glass window effect, just to sort of finish it off with that frame to really sort of hit home the theme. And again, I'm just going to pop that on, covering it as much as possible. Try and do those ones because I kept on missing those before. And there we go, I think I'm happy. Oh, just a little bit there. I'm happy with that, but I just want to do our little technique again, just so I know that I'm not going to put too much of that glue in place. And then as that lays over, what you'll see is you get the depth from the white card, but you get it to look more like a stained glass window effect. Let me just pop a little bit more glue on here to get that down. Again, what you can do is just take that out, or if you've got a little bone folder like this, just use it to get into those smaller places to just get that excess glue off. And we'll just put a little bit on there and a little bit on there. And there we go. Now, as I said to you, I've got a few more here. For this particular card, it's a 7x7 card, and I've got 4 more of the same thing. And I've got a 7x7 card here that I'm just going to stick some layering on, just to get that little background. Again, don't worry about too much glue. I think that we all, again, as I said, put a bit too much glue and you don't need to. Just going to line that up. So we get a little bit of the white underneath, but not too much. And there we are, we're going to layer our cards on. I'm just going to use some foam tape so we've got a little bit of dimension on our stained glass windows here. You could also use some gel glue just to get that sort of depth and dimension within the card. There we go. And the last one. What I'm going to do is just line them up so that you've got almost a square window here, like that. And finally, one more. And there we go with our card, and then we've just got a little bit here to create a sentiment. So I'm just gonna, another little tip actually, if you like to make slightly larger sentiments, is this is actually the waste from the card mat and layer. Don't chuck those away. Having little strips of paper, although annoying to find places to put them, is actually a really great way of having sentiments. But actually, sorry, just going to find my stamp. I've got a little stamping platform here. Now, if you don't feel comfortable stamping it straight on with a platform, you could also use a stamp press. But I think as long as I'm sort of laying it up as straight, which is nice about having the grids on these stamping platforms. There we go. I'm just going to line this up. Now, again, something like this, a little mat, is a great way of lining up to make sure that it's going to be straight when you get it down. And if you, like I say, if you are using a stamping press like this, just give it a little bit of a wiggle around to make sure that you've got all of that stamped down. But again, if you use a stamp press, that will be fine too. Now, earlier I did put this through, but for some reason it didn't go through the die cutting machine properly. So I'm just going to send it through one more time to get that Easter sentiment. There we go. Another thing as well, you'll notice about the happy in my sentiment was actually came from a happy birthday stamp. Because it's just rubber, it is possible to actually cut the sentiment stamps. Now, just give it a little bit of a hit to get that out, and we'll use our pokey tool to push our little sentiment. But yeah, as I was saying, because they are rubber stamps, you can actually cut them, so you could use birthday separately, happy separately, and then just line them up again if you needed to use the happy birthday stamp. So we're just going to put a little bit on here. Quite a thin die, so we don't need too much. And lay it up, get it stuck down straight. Whoop. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and just create a little bit of detail on the side. Don't worry too much about being too accurate for something like this. It's just about getting a little bit, oh look, see? Messy fingers, it's fine, don't worry. Just a little bit on here. But what we could do, if you find that you get a bit of ink on here, what I would recommend is just maybe a little bit of jewels or something like that, just to cover that up. Messes happen, don't panic too much. But very simply, just get that glue to stick down. And there we go, Easter card. With basically a paper piecing technique where you don't have to worry about doing paper piecing that much.